Welcome everyone to the 107th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Harry Styles and Niall Horan. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a synastry chart looking at the personal planet signs aspects and if birth time available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us weekly, and let's get right into this one. Starting off with the sun, we have Harry's sun in Aquarius and Niall's sun in Virgo. It's mentally harmonious and a good intellectual team, which I feel like would be quite useful considering, they're band together. Harry helps Niall be open-minded and Niall brings structure to Harry's life. Harry's sun overlaid in Niall's 5th house. Niall enjoys the adoration from Harry, and this is characterized by luck and pleasure. Harry may be overlooking Niall's flaws, and Harry sees Niall as a source of pleasure, which I feel like a lot of people overlook Niall's flaws, so he's not alone in that. I'm just thinking now, is there any flaws he actually has? Because he genuinely seems like a very flawless person. Niall's sun overlaid in Harry's 11th house. There's a friendly atmosphere and they accept the differences and flaws, which we just saw on Harry's end for Niall. They are not judgmental of each other. Again, kind of coming a bit more from Harry with, him helping Niall to be more open-minded. Niall sees Harry as someone he can spend time with. Harry's sun opposite Niall's moon. Niall may find Harry overbearing. The only way I can really see this is his sort of adoration from Harry might be a bit overbearing, seeing him as a flawless person and really admiring him. Maybe that is a bit too overbearing for Niall. They are both drawn to the relationship and Harry may find Niall too dependent. Okay. I wonder if that is coming from a place of maybe being too dependent on the band, because it seems from public perception, Niall was definitely the one most invested into it. It seemed like he enjoyed it there the most, whereas the others had that little element of wouldn't mind to be a solo stub. And, Harry's sun trine Niall's Jupiter. They will overdo together and they're good travel companions, and there's a possibility of unpredictability. I feel like this is a nice way to summarize One Direction, so that's there. Niall boosts Harry's self-confidence and they both have a desire to make the other happy. So there seems to be an element of, boosting the other's confidence, because we're seeing the whole Harry adoring Niall sort of thing. So it seems like their self-esteem's with these two, they seem to, boost the other's self-esteem and confidence and everything. Both have a desire to make the other happy, and positive mutual respect will be maintained if they separate. It seems to be that way. I don't think anything has come out with Niall or Harry. With some other band members, there is that sort of suspicion that there is negative and no respect at all when they separated. I feel like with these two, nothing has really come out, so this sort of checks. Niall gives Harry the benefit of the doubt frequently. Niall's sun trine Harry's Uranus. Niall inspires Harry and frequent changes occur, going back to the sort of possibility of unpredictability and everything. They get each other's humor and they encourage each other to be themselves. This seems to be another strong element here. Niall thinks of Harry as inspiring and exciting, and Harry tries to keep the relationship interesting. So this could be, just with Niall, or potentially with the whole One Direction gang band, where potentially, I don't know, Harry tries to mix things up with some activities or something like that, joke around and initiate those kind of things maybe. Niall may feel threatened by Harry's need for freedom. I don't really like seeing this. And what did we see? Harry seeing Niall as too dependent? They both need to encourage the other's independence. So I guess looking at this, and we did see that the positive mutual respect will be maintained. I guess that is why they're able to have that, positive, ending of sorts, and that sort of mutual respect, because they, are actively encouraging the other's independence now. Niall's sun trine Harry's Neptune. It's tolerant and forgiving, and Niall strengthens Harry's ego. It seems like they both do it for each other, honestly. They're attuned to each other's feelings, and Harry inspires Niall to be creative, so they're both inspiring each other. Very nice. So now it's time for moon. We have Harry's moon in Libra and Niall's moon in Leo. They enjoy the other's company, and Harry has a problem pleasing Niall too much. I guess coming from that sense of like adoration he has for Niall. Niall doesn't take advantage of Harry's agreeable nature, and they respect each other. Harry's moon overlaid in Niall's first house. They both feel safe expressing their feelings, and Harry feels immediately safe with Niall. Harry brings out a sensitive Niall, and it's a tender and warm relationship. So far, it does seem to be quite tender and warm. Like, all we're really seeing so far is like they're both inspiring each other. They're both boosting each other's like confidence and ego and everything. Like, the only negative thing we have seen that isn't so tender and warm, there seems to be, attachment on Niall's end, and I guess Harry wanting some sense of independence, which, speaks for itself, I would say. Niall's moon overlaid in Harry's 10th house. It's a neutral relationship, and Niall feels uneasy around Harry. I hate every time I say, I like, wow, this is going so positively so far. Immediately we go into a U-turn every single time. I need to stop saying it or even thinking about it at this point. There are practical reasons for this relationship. I mean, true though, because they wouldn't have met if it wasn't for practical reasons. Niall feels Harry is selfish. I mean, I feel like this is, relating to the sort of independence that he desires to have, the sense of freedom Niall is threatened by. They view each other as a trophy. Their moons are sextile to each other, so they cooperate domestically, which I feel like goes back to how they're good travel companions, because that is what I guess their sense of domestic was for a few years with each other. They sense the other's moods, and there's an instant empathetic bond, which I'm pretty sure we did see that they're quite in tune with each other emotionally, I believe it was. Both families are likely to play a role in the relationship, which I see that mostly not just with these two, but like as One Direction as a whole. That was definitely, I don't know how big it was a part of the whole sort of like, image of One Direction, but it was definitely there. I'm thinking of the like Story of My Life music video where like all the families were involved for that. And, in general, they were kind of like the families were in the background. I don't feel like you always see that with, celebrities, famous people, particularly in bands where their families are so involved, if that makes sense. They may live together and they feel safe with each other, which we did see on Harry's, and that he feels immediately safe with Niall. They avoid hurting each other, which so far I feel like they wouldn't. It seems like a relationship where they do seem to try be nicer to each other rather than not. But we definitely did see this specifically. I think it was like Niall doesn't take advantage of Harry, which is great. Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favorite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading. Harry's moon conjunct Niall's Jupiter. It's easy to overdo and be excessive, and it's a relationship of opportunities and fortune. First of all, duh. Second of all, I feel like we've already seen this a couple times, like the idea of them overdoing and being excessive and all of that. They have a positive influence as a couple, and they need to learn balance. They take risks as a couple, and they support people in need, which I feel like this is obviously referring to the whole, like, I guess, One Direction did a few, like, charitable things. I'm pretty sure that happened. Harry feels luckier and more adventurous around Niall. I wonder if maybe, like, because we're seeing, like, confidence is a whole lot better here, like, with these two particularly, the confidence is getting boosted and everything. I wonder if, like, Harry in his head maybe saw working with someone like Niall as, like, sort of jumping off point for like the rest of his career. Like it was a sort of like transition period while he like, grew, developed and everything, his own sort of like craft and talent. Niall expands Harry's way of thinking about life. Harry's moon is square Niall's Uranus. Harry is possessive of Niall. I would have thought this would be the other way around, honestly, but we'll see more, hopefully. The relationship can begin suddenly, and Harry feels emotionally insecure around Niall. Harry's moon is square Niall's Neptune. They misunderstand each other's signals, and it's a confusing relationship. There's a possibility of neglecting each other. I mean, kind of with them separating, like, as far as I know, obviously we're not in the personal lives of these people. It doesn't seem like they are friends, as far as I know, but, let me know in the comments if you, know anything otherwise. We did see the positive mutual respect will be there if they separate. But, you could kind of see, like, them suddenly, like, breaking up, if that makes sense. They're always these two are always together for like, it was like a few years, I would say, like always together, always working with each other, and then suddenly they split and never see each other again. I feel like that kind of is neglectful of each other, if that makes sense. Just suddenly breaking up after this like long friendship you have. Harry is sensitive to Niall's moods, and Harry is unsure of Niall's intentions. It's difficulty maintaining their relationship. Niall's moon are opposite Harry's Venus. They both learn balance and harmony, and living beyond means occurs. It's easy to take each other for granted, and they will not appreciate each other sometimes. I wonder if maybe like the whole practical relationship might be like a sort of like, I'm seeing like a looming sort of dark cloud over these two, potentially, because it seems like they have a generally good foundation. They're very friendly with each other. They seem to like each other and everything. But I wonder if that whole sort of like the practical side of things, the actual like, I guess, machine behind the band, you could say, and the whole like, career side of things, I wonder if that looms over these two, and that is why you have like Harry's unsure of Niall's intentions, because you're kind of not really friends with me genuinely, if that makes sense. Niall may be undervalued or misunderstood by Harry, which I guess goes back to those intentions. Maybe he feels like Harry's a bit misguided in having suspicions of him. Compromise needs to happen, and Harry gets confused of Niall's emotions. I wonder if that's why maybe he's more sensitive to it, and maybe that is why he feels a bit more insecure around Niall in that way. Niall sees Harry as narcissistic and seductive, and Harry sees Niall as childish and needy, which I feel like these 2 points go back to the whole sort of like independence-dependence thing they have going on. You could see Niall like Harry narcissistic and seductive, like he just wants to be this like, leader, this, pop star, going out on his own instead of like, being with the band and what they, built together and everything. And then you could see, Harry seeing Niall as childish and needy, like you need to mature and, grow from the band and everything. You can't stop being dependent on us, if that makes sense. Niall's moon is square Harry's Jupiter. Tendency to be extreme and excessive, we're seeing again and again. Poor judgment can lead to trouble, and they are too optimistic as a couple, okay? They both feel free with their emotions, and it's a relationship about determining boundaries. We've seen this a bit as well, like, mostly in terms of like they need to learn balance. They both will learn better judgment, and there's a failing to keep promises. Niall may become possessive of Harry, which this is what I was more so expecting. I'm very curious if we'll see a bit more of the possession thing, because we've seen this like once off on each side. A bit more on sort of Niall in other ways, but I'm very curious to see a bit more. They meet in an optimistic way. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Harry's Mercury in Aquarius and Niall's Mercury in Libra. These are both air signs. They have abstract conversations, and they both tend to be argumentative. It's intellectually stimulating, throwback right to the beginning, and they share detached and objective values. Harry's Mercury overlaid in Niall's 5th house. Harry is like the sun to Niall, and Harry makes Niall's day. I feel like they do. Like, overall, I feel like we've seen a lot more positive than negative here. They both encourage each other, and it's not a boring relationship. Yeah, obviously. And I think we've seen that as well already quite well. There is easy communication. Niall's Mercury overlaid in Harry's 11th house. Niall is open and communicative with Harry, and Harry finds Niall pleasant. Harry looks forward to spending time with Niall, and they are both tolerant and patient with the other. Harry's Mercury conjunct Niall's Saturn. Niall influences Harry to be more productive, which this is another throwback to the beginning where I believe we did see that Niall helps Harry have more structure in his life. Harry is not comfortable talking to Niall, and they have practical conversations. See, I wonder if maybe the practicality is sort of this looming thing over their, dynamic, because we've already seen, again, Harry not being really comfortable talking to Niall. I wonder if this is more in that sort of emotional way, because we've seen that a bit more, Harry being uncomfortable emotionally, because it seems in other ways they generally have fine communication. Niall makes Harry self-conscious. In what way? The only way I can really think of, maybe Harry might feel a bit guilty with, wanting to go independent, because it seems like Niall is really not impressed with that. So, maybe there is some guilt tripping there. There's direct communication, and Niall criticizes Harry. There's mutual respect in the beginning, and Niall feels threatened by Harry. I mean, again, his sense of freedom, we literally saw that. But we did also see how Niall sees Harry as narcissistic and seductive, which I feel is what, the sort of stereotypical evil pop star, ways to describe them is this narcissistic, just wanting to be the best, top on the chart sort of, and they're so seductive and everything. That is, in my head, the way Niall will be threatened by Harry is seeing him as a sort of top dog, wanting to be this top guy in the industry, if that makes sense. Hopefully he did. Niall acts as a teacher with Harry, again with the whole, wanting to be practical and structure and everything. Niall's Mercury trine Harry's Mars. Harry stimulates Niall's mind, and Harry energizes Niall, which we did see how he makes his days, the sun to him and everything, also seems to inspire him, which is nice. Harry helps Niall develop his ideas, and there's healthy intellectual competition, which I assume would maybe be referring to maybe how they are now, they have that, healthy competition, they have that mutual respect, because from what I'm getting from this reading anyway, it doesn't seem it seems like Harry is the one that wants the independence, wants to be the solo star and everything, whereas Niall, he seems to be quite content with, sharing the success of Harry and the other members. So I wonder, if that is referring to the current stage of things. Niall teaches Harry how to be more reasonable, and they both move forward in this relationship. They work well together, and Niall helps Harry to problem solve. They enjoy debating, and Harry takes Niall's words personally, which you could see this in one of two ways, Harry taking on Niall's advice and all of that. You could also see this throwback to how, Harry is a bit too sensitive to Niall's words, taking it personally. So now it's time for Venus. We have Harry's Venus in Aquarius and Niall's Venus in Leo. These are both fixed signs and also sister polarity signs. Opposites attract. Niall is subjective, Harry is objective, which I feel is kind of a good way to summarize their thoughts on, working together in the band and everything. Niall, subjective, has that personal attachment. He wants to stay in it, for that sort of personal, I guess sentiment, you could say. Whereas Harry, objectively, he's seeing things in the greater picture. This band probably won't take me as far as I want to go, won't bring me that sort of solo success I want, They want to be the best for each other, and they balance each other out. Harry's Venus overlaid in Niall's 5th house. Niall is forgiving of Harry's faults, and they are both satisfied here, which we did see in the beginning that Harry is overlooking Niall's flaws, so that seems to be a sort of mutual thing. Niall appreciates the admiration from Harry, going back to the beginning, how he seems to adore Niall. Niall may take advantage of Harry. What? I don't like this. I don't like this at all. The only way I could see it, maybe potentially guilt tripping Harry into staying into the band. Who knows when those discussions started. Very well could have been right at the beginning. So who knows? In other ways, I'm not sure where. Maybe we'll see a bit more towards the end. Harry's Venus overlaid in Niall's 10th house. Work is their focus, and Niall sees Harry as someone that can help him improve his status, which, goes back to how Harry is unsure of Niall's intentions and all of that. He seems to have a bit more paranoia around, like, Niall and what his, like, true intentions are, what he's up to. Also, how we did see Niall may take advantage of Harry. Interesting. Harry sees Niall as having talent in areas he lacks, and they work well together. They respect each other's strengths and skills, and areas of expertise complement each other. It's a productive and profitable relationship, and they both want to be the boss. I kind of see this, like, it seems like Niall, like, in the nicest way possible, it seems like from this reading that Niall is sort of the more brains behind everything, and Harry is the more beauty behind everything. Niall seems to be helping Harry, have that structure and everything, whereas we did see Niall seeing as Harry as this being more narcissistic, seductive. He seems to want to be the independent one, And, especially in the music industry, they are both, like, good things to have and, good strengths of people, I guess you could say, which could lead to, boss type dynamics for an individual. So it's not so shocking that they both want to be the boss. Their Venus signs are opposite to each other, so there is a difference in values, and decision making is difficult. I think this will be just their values in terms of, like, I guess where they see their life and career going. They have different social backgrounds, which, I mean, Niall had the whole Irish thing going on, and Harry, I believe, is just English, which they have a big rivalry going on and everything. So I would say, like, particularly for them, it would be quite different. Arguments over money can occur, and they have a difference in aesthetic taste. I mean, if you look at it the way they are now, they definitely have quite a different aesthetic taste and aesthetic to them. Harry's Venus trine Niall's Mars. Niall enjoys spending time with Harry, and it's a fulfilling relationship, and Harry makes Niall feel confident. All things we've seen repeated, which is nice. Harry's Venus trine Niall's Jupiter. They see the good in each other, and they make each other feel more confident. They share inside jokes, which I feel like goes back to how, I think it was we saw Harry likes to keep the relationship interesting, so potentially that way, the fun, the jokes and everything. They're a financially abundant couple, and they're a popular couple. They thrive in each other's company, and Harry improves Niall's social life, which we did see how it was Niall sees Harry as someone who can help him improve his status and everything, so that is there. So now it's time for Mars. We have Harry's Mars in Aquarius and Niall's Mars in Libra. These are both air signs. Niall compromises with Harry, and Niall boosts Harry's ego. I mean, we're seeing again and again. Harry doesn't like Niall's protectiveness. I wonder maybe if that is the issue that Niall has. Maybe he's just a bit more protective of Harry. At least in the band, they so to speak, have each other. They have the support of the other, whereas you're alone in the music industry. That could be quite a mean place, Niall wants equality, Harry wants dominance. I feel like this again reflects, their views on the band and everything, and how we did see, Niall is subjective, Harry is objective. I feel like it's, kind of matches there. Harry's Mars overlaid in Niall's 4th house. Harry pushes Niall out of his comfort zone, and Harry can't provide the peace Niall wants. Niall is nurturing to Harry, so I wonder if that is maybe the motivation as to why, Niall doesn't really want Harry to leave. There is that element of, maybe not, liking that Harry wants the whole dominance and, all of that sort of thing of the music industry. But it also is coming from a place of, care for Harry. Niall creates a safe space for Harry, and arguments are heated due to being defensive and emotional. Niall's Mars overlaid in Harry's 12th house. Harry feels uncomfortable around Niall, which this is a weird element that has been sprinkled here a few times, hasn't it? This weird Harry not being the most comfortable around Niall. They fight each other. I mean, we did see that they tend to be argumentative, so I assume it is just arguing frequently. I mean, they are together, or were together, pretty much 24/7, so it would happen. Niall brings out a hidden side of Harry, and there's a relationship formed from having to protect one another. I mean, understandably so. They are in a very unique environment, and I feel like I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but, you know, environment where they would need to protect each other and like look out for each other and everything. Niall feels drained by Harry and Harry wants to protect Niall. Harry sees the more fragile part of Niall. This seems like a bit more of like we did see earlier, like a tender and warm relationship. I feel like it leans towards that. Niall's is Mars, square Harry's Uranus. It's exciting but unstable, and it is not long term. I mean, in a way it wasn't, like in the grand scheme of things. Harry triggers Niall's temper and Niall gets easily irritated with Harry. They may encourage each other to be reckless. I feel like this will be more coming from like Harry's end. Harry sees Niall as a threat to his independence and Harry distances himself from Niall. So it seems like the whole sort of like breaking apart from the band and like particularly Harry wanting to seemingly go solo and big. It seems like for these two anyway, it seems like this was a big like point of contention. Niall's Mars square Harry's Neptune. Circumstances in meeting were never understood by one of the partners, which I wonder maybe like for these two in particular, maybe they don't know why they were put together in a band maybe, or they just were very, I guess at the time anyway, because now, I mean, even their meeting, like I was going to say, like at this point they should know already. But I feel like their meeting always is kind of like, oh, this person set them up. No, this person did. Like, you know, there does seem to be a bit more like around the meeting. They need honesty to make this work, which I mean, honesty, yeah, about the intentions would be great. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. From what I remember, covering, because we've covered a few of the other One Direction like partners like duos, I guess you could say. It seems like these two have had the most positive one from what I remember. Like it seems to be like generally as a whole quite tender and warm despite the sort of like, you know, faults they have. But what relationship doesn't, particularly when you're around someone for like 24/7, there would be cracks. And of course, if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. And besides that, give this video a like and I will see you guys next time. Bye!